Welcome to Wolfe Street. Like, subscribe, and stay with the mystery. Tell me, which part of the world are you watching from?
Chapter 1. Faye. The spotless arrival rain had turned West 35th Street into a brown river with curbs. By the time Walter Hale reached our door shortly after 9 that morning, the storm had eased, though the streets still carried the night's mud and construction dust. Water charged along the gutters, carrying cigarette ends, scraps of newspaper, and enough construction dirt to plant potatoes from 8th Avenue to the Hudson. Across from our brownstone, a crew had been tearing the face off an old warehouse since 7 that morning. Every passing truck lifted another cloud of pale dust, and the wind slapped it against windows, doors, hats, and human lungs. By 11, Fritz had brushed off 4 clients, 2 deliverymen, a police sergeant, and me. I had gone out for the mail because our regular carrier had decided that rain was a natural enemy of federal service. When I came back, my shoulders looked as if I had been rolled in flour. Fritz met me in the hall with the clothes brush. "You should have worn the tan coat," he said. "The tan coat is not waterproof. Neither are you." He brushed me with the careful disapproval of a man cleaning a valuable rug after a careless guest. Fritz Brenner believed that the world would be a much better place if people stopped tracking it into his house. I had just hung my coat when the bell rang. The man on the stoop was tall, broad in the chest, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 50. His face had the polished firmness of a bank president's desk. He wore a dark charcoal coat, a black felt hat, and gloves the color of wet stone. Rain glittered on his hat, brim and shoulders, but there was no mud on his shoes and no dust on his coat. That was remarkable. The steps were wet, the sidewalk was filthy, and the air outside had enough grit in it to sand furniture. Yet the stranger looked as if he had crossed the street inside a glass case. "I have an appointment with Mr. Wolfe," he said. His voice was low and trained. It had the quality of a man accustomed to having silence provided for him. Name: Walter Hale. That matched the 11:30 entry in my notebook. The appointment had been arranged by telephone the previous afternoon. Mr. Hale had been polite, brief, and unwilling to state his business to anyone but Wolfe. Since he had agreed without protest to our usual consultation fee, I had given him the time. I opened the door wider. "Come in, Mr. Hale. I'm Archie Goodwin." He removed his hat and stepped into the hall. Fritz appeared with the brush, took one look at the coat and stopped. It was only a pause, but Fritz was not a man who wasted them. "No need," Hale said, glancing at the brush. "So, I see," Fritz replied. His eyes went to the visitor's shoes. Mine followed. The leather was dark and newly polished, with only a faint sheen of rain across the toes. Not a splash of mud marked the sides. Not a grain of white dust clung to the seams. Hale handed Fritz his hat but kept the coat on. "You may leave that too," I told him. "I prefer to keep it." The hall was warm. The coat was heavy. Hale was not shivering. That made 2 small things worth remembering. I led him to the office. Wolfe was behind his desk, occupying his custom-made chair in a way that made ordinary furniture seem timid. He had returned from the plant rooms half an hour earlier and was engaged with the morning paper. A glass vase holding 3 sprays of yellow orchids stood on the corner of his desk. He claimed he did not bring flowers into the office for decoration, which meant they were there for decoration. Wolfe lowered the paper enough to inspect our visitor. "Mr. Walter Hale?" "Yes." "Sit." Hale took the red leather chair. I went to my desk, opened my notebook, and waited. For a full 10 seconds no one spoke. Wolfe regarded Hale's coat. Hale regarded Wolfe's face. I regarded both and wondered which one would admit curiosity first. Wolfe won by refusing to compete. Hale cleared his throat. "I was told you handle confidential matters. Sometimes. I require complete discretion." "You require nothing until I accept employment." Hale's jaw tightened slightly. "Very well. I want you to prevent a murder. I picked up my pen, Wolfe's eyes narrowed by perhaps half a degree. Whose? Mine. That was a respectable beginning. I had heard worse. Wolfe leaned back. Who intends to kill you? I don't know. When? I don't know. How? I don't know. Wolfe made a small movement with his right hand, brushing away an invisible crumb. You offer 3 declarations of ignorance and call them a problem. I offer evidence. Present it. Hale reached inside his coat. His hand remained there a moment longer than necessary. When it came out, it held a plain white envelope. I noticed that the inside lining of the coat was tan silk, and that one section near the breast pocket was darker than the rest, as if it had recently been damp or cleaned. He placed the envelope on Wolfe's desk. It arrived at my office yesterday morning. Wolfe did not touch it. Open it, Archie. I took the envelope. It bore Hale's name and business address in block capitals. No stamp, no postal marking. Someone had delivered it by hand. Inside was a single sheet of good writing paper. The message had been typed. You have until Friday night return what you took. No police. There was no signature. Today was Tuesday. I passed the sheet to Wolfe. He read it twice. What did you take? He asked. Nothing. Ifu. Hale's face changed, not much, but enough. His nostrils widened and his eyes hardened. I came here for help, Mr. Wolfe, not insult. You came here with a lie prepared. That is an insult to me. Hale rose. Halfway from the chair, he said. You might as well sit down. He charges the same whether you stand or not. Hale looked at me, decided I was furniture, and sat again. Wolfe tapped the sheet with one finger. The writer assumes you know what is meant. You do know. Whether you actually took something is another question. Hale looked toward the orchids, which was safer than looking at Wolfe. There was a transaction. What kind? A business arrangement. Between whom? My company and several private investors. Name the company. Hale Industrial Holdings. I knew the name. Anyone who read the financial pages did. Hale Industrial owned machine shops, freight terminals, storage facilities, and enough smaller companies to keep a squad of accountants tired. Walter Hale had built it from one metalworks plant in Queens. Wolfe asked. What was the arrangement? Hale hesitated. 6 months ago, my company acquired the Mercer Warehouse Corporation. The warehouse across the street was called Mercer. That was interesting enough for me to stop pretending it was not. Wolfe's gaze shifted to the windows behind Hale, though the blinds were drawn against the construction dust. The building opposite this house? One of Mercer's properties. Currently being demolished. Yes, why? It was unsafe. Continue. Hale clasped his gloved hands. He had not removed the gloves either. The acquisition involved several sealed accounts. Some records are missing. One of the former owners believes I have them. Do you? Number Wolfe made a sound that did not qualify as a word, but carried a full paragraph of disbelief. Hale continued. The former owners were brothers, Nathan and Paul Mercer. Nathan died 2 months after the sale. Paul vanished 3 weeks ago. Vanished. He left his apartment and has not returned. Was his disappearance reported? Yes, to the police. By his sister. And you wish me to believe the note is unrelated to Mr. Mercer? I believe he wrote it. Then he has not vanished. He may have written it before he disappeared. Possible, also convenient. Hale looked at me for the first time as if checking whether I was recording every word. I was, Wolfe asked. What do the missing records concern? I don't know. That 4th declaration of ignorance did not improve his standing. Wolfe's lips tightened. You are a busy man, Mr. Hale. You crossed a street, made nearly impassable by mud and debris, entered my house at the appointed minute, and now spend my time avoiding nouns. You will supply some. Hale glanced at the clock. The records may concern payments made during the acquisition. Illegal payments. I did not say that. You did not have to. Somewhere above us, Theodore Horstman was probably tending the orchids, though Wolfe had spent his morning plant hours upstairs and would not return until 4. Wolfe's schedule was more firmly guarded than most national borders. Hale removed one glove, then the other. His hands were large and clean, but the nail of his right thumb had a dark streak beneath it. Grease, possibly. Or old blood, if you wanted to be dramatic before lunch, he said. Nathan Mercer accused me of using false valuations to force the sale. He threatened to expose the transaction. Before he could do so, he died. How? A fall. Where? In the Mercer warehouse. I looked toward the front wall, Wolfe asked. Accidental. The police said so. You disagree? I have no opinion. You have many opinions, you merely deny them shelter in words. Hale leaned forward. Mr. Wolfe, yesterday I received that threat. Last night, someone entered my house. What was taken? Nothing I could identify. Signs of search. My study had been disturbed, desk drawers opened, books moved, a wall safe examined. Examined but not opened. Yes, who knew the combination? Only I did. Did? Hale paused, Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Your tense was instructive. My secretary knew it until last month. Name, Evelyn Cross. Why did she cease to know it? I changed the combination. Why? She left my employment. Voluntarily. Number, reason. She copied private documents. What documents? Company correspondence. Concerning Mercer. Hale's silence answered. Wolfe folded his hands over his middle. Where is Miss Cross now? I don't know. Another disappearance. Number, she simply has not been at her apartment for several days. Have you informed the police? Number, because the note forbids it. Yes, yet you came to me. You are not the police. An observation of dazzling accuracy. I kept my face straight. Hale's mouth compressed. Will you take the case? Wolfe looked at him. Not yet. What more do you need? The truth would be useful. I have told you the truth. Number, you have selected portions of it, washed them, pressed them, and brought them here wearing a clean coat. That made Hale's eyes flicker. Wolfe saw it. I saw Wolfe see it, he said. Why is your coat clean? Hale stared. What? The street is mud, the air is dust. Your shoes are polished and unstained. Your coat carries rain but no soil. Mr. Goodwin returned through the same neighborhood 10 minutes before you and required attention from Mr. Brenner. 4 earlier visitors did as well. You did not. I came by car. Where is it? Near the corner, 9th Avenue. To reach this house from 9th Avenue, you crossed the construction zone. I used an umbrella. An umbrella guards against rain, not mud. Hale's expression became guarded. I failed to see the importance. That is possible. I do not. Wolfe turned his head. Archie. I knew the tone. It meant move. I rose and went to the hall. Hale stood at once. Where is he going? To admire the weather. Wolfe said. I took my raincoat, declined Fritz's offer of the tan one, and stepped outside. The construction crew across the street had stopped for a break. The foreman stood under a canvas shelter drinking coffee. The sidewalk directly in front of Wolfe's house was a mess, but there were tracks through it, including mine. Hale's were there too, though they began at the curb and ended at our steps. They did not continue toward 9th Avenue. I crossed carefully. The warehouse entrance stood behind a temporary wooden barrier. A section of the barrier had been moved aside, just enough for a man to pass. On the ground inside lay broken plaster, wet boards, and a strip of black cloth snagged on a nail. I bent and examined it. Charcoal wool. A man came out of the warehouse wearing a hard hat and carrying a wrench. You lost, he demanded. Constantly. Did a tall man in a dark coat come through here 10 minutes ago? He frowned. No visitors allowed. That wasn't my question. He looked toward our brownstone. A fellow came out the side door. Thought he was with the owners. Had a clean coat under some kind of cover. What kind canvas? Maybe. He pulled it off before he crossed. What did he do with it? Left it inside. I showed him my card. It did not give me legal authority, but it had Wolfe's name on it, which was often more useful. Can I see it? We went inside. The place smelled of wet timber, plaster, rust, and old machinery. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the boarded windows. Dust lay thick over everything except a narrow path of disturbed footprints. The workman led me to a pile of debris beside a stairwell. A grey canvas cover lay crumpled there. It had been fashioned like a loose rain cloak, with a slit for the head. Its outside was streaked white with construction dust and dark with rain. Its inside was clean. Near it stood a metal door marked Basement Records. The padlock hung open. I touched nothing. When I returned to the brownstone, Hale was still in the red chair, but he was no longer comfortable in it. Wolfe was reading the threat again. Fritz had brought beer for Wolfe and nothing for Hale, which indicated that Fritz had formed an opinion. I sat at my desk. Well, Wolfe asked. Mr. Hale did not come from 9th Avenue. He came out of the Mercer warehouse. He wore a canvas cover over his coat and discarded it inside. A basement records room has been opened. Hale's face did not collapse. Men like Walter Hale spend years training their faces not to, but his right hand tightened on the arm of the chair. Wolfe regarded him with open disgust. You came here directly from a building where a man died, he said. You concealed that fact. You protected your coat from the dust because you intended me to believe you had arrived from elsewhere. You brought a threat connected to missing records, after visiting a locked records room in the very property where those records disappeared. Hale stood. I have made a mistake. Yes, I should not have come. Another mistake. Hale reached for the envelope. Wolfe placed one finger on it. Number, it belongs to me. It is now evidence offered during a consultation for which you requested my professional judgment. I have not hired you. Nor have I accepted you. Nevertheless, you will not remove it. Hale looked at me. I stood too, not because I expected trouble, but because standing improves the odds when trouble has broad shoulders. For several seconds, he considered choices. Then he buttoned his coat. You will hear from my lawyer. That threat is less interesting than the first, Wolfe said. Hale turned toward the door. Wolfe spoke before he reached it. Mr. Hale? Hale stopped. You did not enter that warehouse to find the missing records. Slowly, Hale looked back. Wolfe continued. You entered to determine whether someone else had already found them. That distinction may save your life if your fear is genuine. Hale's face finally lost its polish, only for an instant, then he left. I followed him to the hall. Fritz handed over his hat. Hale placed it on his head, opened the front door, and stepped into the rain. This time, without the canvas cover, the wind struck his coat with a cloud of white dust before he reached the curb. Fritz watched through the glass. He lied, he said. He certainly did. About the coat. About nearly everything. Fritz looked down at the floor, where Hale had stood. Something small and metallic lay near the umbrella stand. I picked it up. It was a brass key, old and heavy, with a paper label tied to its ring by black thread. The label bore two typed words, North Room. I carried it into the office and laid it before Wolfe. He examined it without touching it. The records room across the street was in the basement, I said. This says North Room. Yes. So either he dropped the wrong key, or there is another room. Wolfe lifted his beer and drank. Archie, telephone Inspector Kramer. That will make Hale happy. I am not employed to make Mr. Hale happy. You're not employed at all. Wolfe looked at the brass key, then at the rain, streaked windows. That, he said, is likely to change before dinner. Chapter 2 Faye, a man with no journey. Walter Hale returned. At 9:15 the next morning, which was an inconvenient hour for everyone concerned. Wolfe was upstairs with the orchids. Fritz was preparing shad roe with a sauce he regarded as a personal achievement. I was at my desk sorting the mail into 3 piles. Bills, nuisances, and items Wolfe might be forced to acknowledge. Inspector Kramer had not yet answered my call from the previous afternoon, though Sergeant Pearlie Stebbins had telephoned at 8:30 to ask whether we had found a corpse. I had told him not yet. When the doorbell rang, Fritz was occupied in the kitchen, so I went to the hall. Hale stood on the stoop in the same charcoal coat. This time it carried a faint mist of rain and several streaks of white dust across the shoulders. His shoes were muddy enough to satisfy nature, the construction crew, and any detective who judged honesty by footwear. He entered without waiting for an invitation. "I need to see Wolfe. He's busy. I will wait." "Then you'll wait until 11. He spends 2 hours with 10,000 orchids every morning, and none of them has ever asked him to change his schedule." Hale removed his hat and looked toward the office. He was pale, though not from the weather. The polished executive face had been used hard overnight. His eyes were red at the edges, and there was a shaving cut below his left ear. "I have decided to employ him," he said. "That will interest him more than your lawyer. My lawyer knows nothing about this. Neither do we, except that you lied about where you came from, entered a locked room in a condemned warehouse, dropped a key marked North Room, and tried to take back a threatening letter." His mouth tightened. "I did not drop that key. It fell where you had been standing. Then someone placed it there. That theory is popular with men whose pockets leak evidence." He looked past me. "Where is it?" "Safe. Return it. Number. I am prepared to pay Wolfe's fee." "That purchases services, not souvenirs." Hale took one step toward me. I did not move. He was bigger, but size is merely one item on an invoice. Then Fritz appeared from the dining room, wiping his hands on a white towel. "Mr. Hale," he said, "your shoes." Hale looked down. He had already planted 2 muddy prints on the floor. Fritz pointed to the mat. Hale went back and wiped his shoes. There are men who can command factories, banks and boards of directors, but will still obey Fritz Brenner in the front hall. I put Hale in the front room with a newspaper and told him he could wait quietly or leave loudly. He chose quiet. At 10 minutes to 11, the elevator descended from the plant rooms. Wolfe entered the office with a spray of pale green orchids in his hand and stopped when he saw me standing at the connecting door. "What?" "Hale is waiting." Wolfe placed the flowers in the vase on his desk. "Since when?" 15. "Why?" "He has decided to pay us." "That is not a reason. It is an inducement." "He says confidential plans have been stolen from his company safe." Wolfe settled into his chair. "The missing records have become plans?" "Apparently. Bring him." Hale entered carrying his coat over one arm. That was his first sensible decision of the morning. Wolfe glanced at the clock. "You have waited nearly 2 hours, Mr. Hale. I infer either desperation or poor judgment." "Both, perhaps." "Yesterday you announced your departure." I reconsidered. "Why?" "Because someone broke into my company safe last night." "What was taken?" "Confidential plans." "What kind of plans?" "Technical designs for a new freight control system." Wolfe leaned back. "Yesterday the matter concerned sealed accounts, acquisition records, and a threat demanding the return of something you denied taking. Today it concerns engineering plans. They are connected. How?" "The system was developed by Mercer Warehouse Corporation before I acquired it." Wolfe regarded him in silence. Hale opened the briefcase and removed a folder. "These are photographs of the safe and the office." He placed them on the desk. I got up and carried them to Wolfe. There were 6 glossy photographs. They showed a large office with glass partitions, a steel safe built into the wall, drawers pulled open, papers scattered across the carpet, and a broken lamp beside a leather chair. One picture showed the safe door. It had no visible damage. Wolfe looked through them and returned the stack to me. "Who took these?" "My security chief." "Name?" "Martin Dorr." "Who discovered the theft?" "Dorr did, shortly after 7 this morning." "Who last saw the plans?" "I did, yesterday afternoon." "At what hour?" "A little after 4. "Where?" "In the safe." "Who knew they were there?" My secretary, Laura Vane, door. Possibly 2 members of the engineering staff. You said yesterday that Miss Cross left your employment last month. That is correct. Where is Miss Vane? At the office. Where is Miss Cross? I still do not know. Wolfe's eyes closed halfway. You told Mr. Goodwin you had walked here directly from your office. Yesterday. Hale looked at me. I lifted a brow. I had not yet told Wolfe that particular improvement in Hale's history, because Hale had only mentioned it in the front room while objecting to the key. Wolfe had either heard through the open door or guessed what form the next lie would take. Hale said, I did walk from my office. Your office is on Madison Avenue. Yes, that is more than 2 miles. I often walk. In heavy rain, I had an umbrella, carrying no mud beyond what appeared on your shoes. The sidewalks were wet. The street outside this house was not merely wet. It was torn open. Mr. Goodwin crossed it. Mr. Brenner observed 5 other persons who crossed it. Their coats bore dust and dirty water. Yours did not. I wore the canvas covering you found in the warehouse. Then you did not walk directly from your office. Hale paused. I entered the warehouse on the way. From which direction? Madison Avenue. You approached from the east. Yes. Where did you cross 9th Avenue? I don't remember. You walked more than 2 miles through rain and construction, but cannot remember your route. Your shoes were dirty, but your coat was spotless. That fact troubles you, because you prepared an explanation for the dirt and neglected the cleanliness. Hale stared at him. Wolfe continued. Mud on shoes proves only that shoes have touched mud. A man may dirty them in 10 seconds. A clean coat in a filthy street requires protection, shelter, or a different journey from the one claimed. You protected yours with canvas while inside the Mercer warehouse. Therefore, your journey did not end at this house. It began across the street. I have admitted being in the warehouse. After Mr. Goodwin proved it, I went there to inspect the records room. With whose permission? I own the building. Then why enter through a side door and wear a concealment? It was not a concealment, it was protection from dust. You removed it before crossing the street, so that it would not be seen here. I did not want to arrive looking like a laborer. You wished to arrive looking like a man with no journey. Hale's fingers pressed against the arms of the chair. Wolfe pointed at the photographs. These plans describe them. They include wiring diagrams, equipment layouts, and operating specifications. They represent nearly 2 years of research. Value, potentially several $1 million. To whom? Competitors. Foreign freight companies, anyone wishing to duplicate the system. Why were they in your personal safe rather than a technical archive? They were too valuable to leave elsewhere. Were they originals? Yes. No copies. None complete. That is absurd. Hale's chin lifted. It is true. A project requiring 2 years of work leaves drafts, calculations, revisions, correspondence, and partial copies in many hands. The theft of one folder cannot erase it. It can delay our patent filing and expose proprietary details. A delay rather than destruction. Hale shifted. A damaging delay. Did the thief know the combination? He must have. Was the safe forced? Number. Who knew the current combination? Dor and I. Yesterday you said only you knew it after dismissing Miss Cross. I said she had known the old combination. Dor knows the new one for security reasons. You omitted him. I did not think it mattered. You omit whatever matters most. Hale stood suddenly and walked to the window. The blinds were still lowered against the dust, but he lifted one slat with a finger and looked across the street. The warehouse rose behind the construction fence like a broken jaw. Men moved along the upper floor, knocking plaster from beams. A crane bucket swung above the roofline. The north side of the building faced a narrow alley and could not be seen from Wolfe's front windows. Hale let the blind fall. Wolfe asked, "What is the north room?" Hale turned. "I don't know." I opened the safe, took out the brass key, and placed it on Wolfe's desk. The label hung from its black thread. North room. Hale looked at it, then at me. I told you that is not mine. Have you seen it before? Wolfe asked. Number. Have you heard the phrase? Number. Does the Mercer warehouse contain a room on its north side? It contains many rooms. Does one bear that name? Not officially. Unofficially. Hale did not answer. Wolfe picked up the key between his thumb and forefinger. This is not a modern industrial key. It is old, hand-cut, and worn by years of use. The label is newer. Someone expected the user to need identification. I have never seen it. Then you will object to Mr. Goodwin trying it in the building. I do object. Why? It is private property. You have asked me to investigate a theft connected to that property. The theft occurred at my office. The plans originated with Mercer. The threat referred to something taken. Nathan Mercer died in the warehouse. Paul Mercer disappeared. Evelyn Cross disappeared. You visited the warehouse secretly, and a key naming one of its rooms appeared on my floor. The property is not peripheral. The arrogance remained, but it now stood beside fear. I will authorize you to enter the building, he said, but only with Martin Dora present. Number. Why not? Because you proposed the restriction. Dora is responsible for security. Then his usefulness depends on whether he is guarding your property or guarding your secrets. Hale opened the briefcase again and removed a check. It was already made out to Nero Wolfe for $10,000. That was more persuasive than his explanations, though not more honest. He placed it before Wolfe. Half now, he said. Another 10,000 when the plans are recovered. Wolfe glanced at the check. And the threat. I want the person who sent it identified. Nathan Mercer's death? Hale's eyes became still. That case is closed. Not to me. I am not paying you to investigate a dead man's accident. Wolfe pushed the check back across the desk with one finger. Hale stared at it. You refuse? I have not finished. Your proposed terms are intolerable. You do not hire my intelligence by the slice. If I accept, I decide what is relevant. I question whom I please. Mr. Goodwin enters the warehouse without Mr. Dora, unless Mr. Goodwin chooses otherwise. You provide access to your office, your safe, your employees, and all documents concerning the Mercer acquisition. You also tell me why you were in that building yesterday. Hale's lips parted, then closed. Wolfe waited. Outside, a pneumatic drill began hammering at the street. The sound came through the walls as a steady mechanical assault. Wolfe endured 7 seconds of it before pressing the button beneath his desk. Fritz entered and closed the inner shutters over the windows, reducing the noise to a distant throb. Hale said, I received a telephone call yesterday morning. From whom? A man whose voice I did not recognize. What did he say? He told me the missing plans had been moved to the warehouse. Moved by whom? He did not say. Where in the warehouse? The basement records room. You went there before coming here. Yes. Did you find the plans? Number. What did you find? Nothing. Wolfe's eyes opened wider. That word again. You emerged from a locked records room, concealed your visit, lied about your route, and arrived here carrying a threat. You did not find nothing. Hale looked at the check. Then, he said, I found blood. I stopped tapping my pencil. Wolfe's voice remained level. Where? On the floor behind a row of filing cabinets. Fresh? I could not tell. How much? A smear perhaps 2 feet long. There were drops leading toward the service stairs. Did you follow them? Yes. To where? The north corridor. And then? They ended at a locked door, the north room. I suppose so. Did you have a key? Number yet. The key appeared in this house after your arrival. I did not bring it. Did you try the door? Yes. Was anyone inside? I heard something. What? Hale swallowed. A telephone ringing. That was peculiar enough to silence even the drill outside. Wolfe asked. A telephone inside a locked, unused room in a building being demolished. Yes. How many rings? 4 or 5. Then it stopped. You did not summon the police. Number. You did not notify the construction foreman. Number, you crossed the street, entered my house, and told me merely that you had received a threatening note. Yes. Why? Because the voice on the telephone had said something else. What? Hale's eyes moved from Wolfe to me and back. He said that if I entered the north room, I would be found beside Paul Mercer's body. The office stayed quiet. Wolfe looked at the brass key. Mr. Hale, he said, you have finally supplied a fact with edges. Hale pushed the check forward again. Will you take the case? Wolfe did not touch it. On my terms. Yes, say it without reservation. Hale's jaw worked. On your terms. Wolfe looked at me. Archie, witness the agreement and deposit the check. I took it before Hale could regain wisdom. Wolfe continued. You will return to your office. You will tell no one that I am employed. Mr. Goodwin will arrive there at 1:30 to examine the safe and question Mr. Dora and Miss Vane. Hale nodded. What about the warehouse? Mr. Goodwin and I will discuss it. You will go there today. Wolfe's brows rose. You have purchased my services, not my itinerary. Hale put on his gloves, took his briefcase, and left. Fritz met him in the hall and made certain that the mud remained on the mat when the front door closed. I returned to the office. You let him go, I said. He knows where his office is. He also knows where the blood is, if it remains. And perhaps where Paul Mercer's body is, if it exists. I picked up the key. We could cross the street now. Number, why not? Because Mr. Hale wants us to. He objected. He objected until objection became conspicuous. Then he described a locked room, a ringing telephone, and a body we might find. He has constructed a path and placed this key at its entrance. You think he planted it? I think the key was planted. Whether by Hale is not established. Then what are we doing? You are going to Hale Industrial Holdings at 1:30. And before then, Wolfe leaned back and closed his eyes. You will telephone Inspector Kramer again. Tell him that Walter Hale has reported no blood, no possible corpse, and no unlawful entry at the Mercer warehouse. That should improve Kramer's mood. Nothing improves Mr. Kramer's mood. The question is whether it can be usefully directed. I reached for the telephone, Wolfe added. Then locate Evelyn Cross. Hale couldn't. Mr. Hale has demonstrated little talent for finding what he claims to seek. And the north room. Wolfe opened his eyes and fixed them on the key. A man may lie about where he has been. Mud can be acquired, dust avoided, and a journey invented. But a ringing telephone requires a wire, a caller, and a listener. Find the wire, Archie, and we may discover why Walter Hale needed a spotless coat. Chapter 3. Fay Kramer's Easy Answer. Inspector Kramer arrived at 12:40 with Sergeant Pearlie Stebbins, a wet hat, and the expression of a man who had been handed a dead body before lunch and blamed the nearest civilian. By then the rain had settled into a steady grey curtain. The construction crew across the street had stopped work, not from respect for the dead but because police uniforms were blocking the entrance to the Mercer warehouse. 2 patrol cars stood at the curb, their tires sunk in mud. A photographer had gone in carrying a black case. A medical examiner had followed with less enthusiasm. I had not made it to Hale Industrial Holdings at 1:30. At 11:50, Kramer had telephoned to inform us that Martin Cole, Walter Hale's business partner, had been found dead inside the company's records room. Not the basement room across the street, but the records room on the 6th floor of Hale Industrial's Madison Avenue office. Cole had been discovered by Laura Vane, Hale's new secretary, with a brass letter opener buried beneath his ribs and one hand resting on the open door of a steel cabinet. The stolen plans were missing that had given Kramer an answer before he had even put on his coat. Kramer entered Wolfe's office without waiting to be announced. He threw his hat onto the chair near my desk and sat in the red leather chair opposite Wolfe. Pearlie remained standing, broad and patient, with rainwater shining on his shoulders. Wolfe was at his desk with a bottle of beer and a glass. Luncheon had been delayed 7 minutes by their arrival. a fact that did not improve his reception. Kramer took out a cigar, but did not light it. "You called twice yesterday," he said to me. "Then this morning you called and started talking about blood in a warehouse, a missing man, and Walter Hale. You want to tell me why?" "I already did. You told Pearlie. He takes notes better." Pearlie looked at the ceiling. Kramer turned to Wolfe. "Hale hired you?" "Yes." "When?" "This morning." "For what?" "The recovery of stolen technical plans and the identification of a person who threatened him." "What threat?" Wolfe nodded toward me. I opened the safe, removed the white envelope and typed message, and gave them to Kramer. He read the 3 lines twice. "You have until Friday night. Return what you took." "No police." He handed the paper to Pearlie. "Fingerprints." "I did not test it," Wolfe said. "You handled it." "Mr. Goodwin did." "With gloves?" Kramer glared at me, wonderful. "I didn't know it would become your property." "It becomes my property now." He put the envelope in an evidence sleeve Pearlie produced from an inside pocket. Kramer asked, "What did Hale say he took?" "Nothing," Wolfe replied. "Do you believe him?" "That makes 2 of us." "What was he doing in the Mercer warehouse yesterday?" "He entered the basement records room after receiving a telephone call, directing him there." "Directing him to what?" "The missing plans." "Did he find them?" "What did he find?" "Blood." Kramer stopped moving. Pearlie lowered the evidence sleeve. "Where?" Kramer asked. "In the basement records room, a smear behind filing cabinets and drops, leading toward the north corridor." "And he didn't report it?" "Why not?" "He claims the caller warned him that if he entered the north room, he would be found beside Paul Mercer's body." Kramer leaned forward. "Paul Mercer, the one missing 3 weeks?" "Yes." "And Hale waited until today to tell you. He told me this morning." Kramer's face darkened. "And you waited until after Cole was found dead to tell me?" "I telephoned your office at 11:07, I said. Pearlie has the message." Pearlie said, "He did." Kramer swung his head toward him. "You didn't say anything about a body. There wasn't a body then. There may have been one across the street." She said, "Possible body." Kramer's cigar moved from one corner of his mouth to the other. "I'm surrounded by editors." Wolfe glanced at the clock. "If you intend to question me, proceed. Fritz has prepared luncheon. Your stomach can wait." Kramer ignored that. Martin Cole was Hale's partner for 12 years. He owned 22% of Hale Industrial Holdings and ran legal and financial operations. He was found dead at 10:40 this morning. The records room door was locked from the inside. I said, "That sounds inconvenient." "It isn't. There's a second door through the copying room. It was unlocked." "So not a locked room murder." "I didn't say it was." "You were saving the disappointment." Kramer gave me a look and continued. "Cole had a key to the records room and access to the safe. The stolen plans were last seen yesterday afternoon. We found $30,000 in cash in a leather case under his desk." "New notes?" Wolfe asked. "Mixed. Bank wrappers." Why was the cash under his desk?" "That is one of the questions we're asking." "Then you have not answered it." "I didn't come here for a lecture." You came here with an easy answer." Kramer's jaw tightened. "Cole stole the plans. He arranged to sell them. Hale found out, or somebody else did. There was an argument over money. Cole got killed. The killer took the plans and left the cash because he panicked, or because the cash was never part of the deal." Wolfe poured beer into his glass, watching the foam rise. "Your answer contains several alternatives," he said. "That is not ease, it is looseness. It contains facts. Cole had access. Cole had money. Cole was found dead beside the open cabinet where the plans had been kept. Was the cabinet forced? Were Cole's fingerprints on it? Yes. Whose else? We're checking. Was the letter opener his? It belonged to Hale. It sat on Hale's desk. When was it last seen there? Hale says yesterday evening. Who had access to the office? Half the executive floor. Then the weapon is public. Kramer leaned back. You have a better suspect. I have not proposed one. You usually do, even when no one asks. Wolfe drank. What time did Mr. Cole die? Between 9 and 10 this morning. Was he expected at the office? Yes, he arrived at 8:20. Who saw him? The lobby guard, an elevator operator, and Laura Vane. Did Walter Hale see him? Hale says no. He arrived at 9:05 and went directly to a meeting on the 8th floor. Witnesses: 6 men in a conference room. From 9:05 onward. 9:10, he was alone for 5 minutes. That is enough time to enter the records room, not from the 8th floor, kill Cole, clean up, and get back without being seen. Unless he arrived earlier than 9:05. The lobby register says 9:05. Registers record entries. They do not manufacture truth. Kramer tapped his cigar against his thumbnail. Hale's driver dropped him at the front entrance. Did the driver see him enter? Yes. Did anyone see where Hale came from before entering the car? Kramer's eyes narrowed. His house. Who saw him leave it? We haven't asked. You have an easy answer. Why? Ask difficult questions. Pearlie's mouth twitched. He turned it into a cough. Kramer ignored him. What does this have to do with a clean coat? Wolfe set down his glass. Yesterday Mr. Hale entered this house during rain, mud, and airborne construction dust. His shoes were dirty. His coat was spotless. Kramer stared at him. That's it. Number Hale had a clean coat. Perfectly clean. Kramer looked at me. You called me because a businessman knows how to dress. I called because he came out of the Mercer warehouse after lying about his route. Kramer's head moved back toward Wolfe. He admitted being there. After Archie proved it, Wolfe said. What was he doing? Searching the basement records room. For the plans, so he says. And now his partner is dead, beside another records room. With the plans gone. Yes, that supports my theory. It supports many theories. Kramer stood and walked to the front windows. He lifted the edge of a blind and looked across the street. The warehouse entrance was still guarded. Rain dripped from the wooden barrier. The torn pavement had become a grey trench. He let the blind fall. Your spotless coat is meaningless, he said. Hale covered it while he was in the warehouse. Fine. He didn't want to get dirty. Maybe he didn't want his people to know he had been digging through old files. Maybe he didn't want you to know. Rich men hide foolish things. Men also hide journeys. Uriel evidence matters, Wolfe. Blood, fingerprints, money, a weapon, a dead man. Leave those to the police. Wolfe's eyes closed for a moment. A coat is real. It's cloth. So is a handkerchief. So is a curtain. So is the lining of a pocket. Meaning is not conferred by weight. Kramer's voice rose. Cole is dead. He had $30,000. The plans are missing. You want me to chase rain spots. I want nothing from you. Good. Except competence. Pearlie coughed again, this time without success. Kramer turned on him. You getting sick? No, sir. Then stop making noises. He returned to the chair, but did not sit. What else did Hale tell you? Wolfe gave him the account of Nathan Mercer's death, Paul Mercer's disappearance, Evelyn Cross's dismissal, and the telephone ringing inside the north room. He omitted nothing except his conclusions, which he had not yet shared with me either. Kramer listened with increasing dislike. When Wolfe finished, Kramer said, We searched the north room. That got my attention. When? I asked. Half an hour ago. Hale gave us access. And no body, no telephone, no blood. Wolfe opened his eyes fully. Describe the room. Small office, dusty, empty except for 2 desks, a broken cabinet, and some old ledgers. Windows. 1 boarded window facing the alley. Doors. 1 from the north corridor. No second exit? Not unless somebody can walk through brick. Telephone connection. None, wall outlet. Number loose wire, number blood in the basement. Kramer paused. None, I said. Hale imagined 2 feet of it, or lied. Was the floor cleaned? There were wet marks behind the cabinets. The construction foreman says rainwater has been leaking down a pipe. Wolfe's fingers moved slowly against the arm of his chair. Were the filing cabinets in their original position? How would I know? Ask. Kramer scowled. Why? Because Mr. Hale claimed the blood was behind them. If they were moved after his visit, someone altered the scene. Or Hale invented the whole story. Then why invent a ringing telephone in a room without a line? To frighten you. That would require a poor understanding of me. Kramer picked up his hat. You can play with it. I've got a murder, Wolfe said. Who informed Walter Hale of Mr. Cole's death? Laura Vane called him. At what time? 10:40. 5. Where was Hale? In his office. You said he was in a meeting on the 8th floor. The meeting ended at 10:30. Did he go to the records room? Not until we arrived. Who called the police? Laura Vane. Who was with her when she found the body? No one. Why did she enter? She was looking for a contract Cole had requested. Did she touch anything? She says no. Did she see the missing plans yesterday? She says she saw Hale place a blue folder in the safe at 4:10. Was the stolen folder blue? Hale says yes. Did you find any blue paper, thread, or fiber in the records room? Kramer stopped. Pearlie looked at him. No, Kramer said. Not yet. Then you have not established that the plans were ever there this morning. We established they were there yesterday. You established that Miss Vane says she saw a blue folder placed in a safe. She has no reason to lie. That is not evidence. It is optimism. Kramer jammed his hat onto his head. Come on, Pearlie. Wolfe spoke before they reached the door. Mr. Kramer, the inspector turned. Did Martin Cole wear an overcoat this morning? An overcoat. It was raining. Yes. What color? Brown, I think. Where is it? At the office. Was it wet? I don't know. Dirty. I don't know. Examine it. Kramer made a sound in his throat. Another coat, yes. I'll put the whole department on coats. You might begin with the pockets. Kramer took one step back into the room. What are you after? Mr. Hale's coat was clean because he had protected it while moving through a dirty place. If Mr. Cole's coat was wet or dusty in a pattern inconsistent with his known route, then he too made a concealed journey. To the warehouse, possibly. You have nothing to connect Cole to that building this morning. Not yet. Kramer glanced at Pearlie. Get someone to check the coat. Pearlie moved toward the telephone. Kramer pointed a finger at Wolfe. This changes nothing. Of course not. You have your answer. The call took 3 minutes. Pearlie spoke to a detective at Hale Industrial, listened, and then covered the mouthpiece. Cole's coat is brown wool, he said. Wet along the lower back and sleeves, white dust on the inside lining. Kramer looked at Wolfe. I looked at Wolfe too. He did not move. Pearlie continued listening. There's something in the right inside pocket. What? Kramer demanded. Pearlie's expression changed. A length of black thread and a torn paper label. I went to the safe and brought out the brass key. The black thread was still tied around its ring, but one end showed a fresh break. Kramer saw it. Wolfe said, the key found in my hall was labeled with black thread. The label on Mr. Cole's coat may have come from the same source. Kramer took the key from my hand and examined it. You said Hale dropped this. I said it appeared where Hale had stood, I replied. Kramer looked toward the hall, then back at Wolfe. Cole was here, not to my knowledge. Then how did thread from his pocket get on your key? Wolfe picked up his beer. That, he said, is real evidence. You may take it with you. Kramer's face had gone still. He handed the key to Pearlie, who placed it in another evidence sleeve. Kramer asked, You think Cole planted the key here? I think someone wished us to open the north room. Cole? Perhaps. Why? To find something. or to be found with something. Kramer's eyes sharpened. Hale said he would be found beside Paul Mercer's body. Yes, but there was no body. When you searched. Kramer held Wolfe's gaze for several seconds. Then he turned to Pearlie. Get a full crew back into that warehouse. Walls, floors, drains, everything. Nobody moves a brick without us seeing it. Pearlie nodded and went out. Kramer remained. You knew this would happen. Number, you guessed. I observed that your answer was too easy. Kramer picked up his cigar from the desk. It had gone soft from being chewed. We still have Cole stealing the plans. You have Cole with money and access. And dead. Death is not proof of theft. It often improves the odds. Wolfe's lips compressed. Mr. Cole's coat contained dust on the inside lining. Dust reaches the outside first. Therefore, either the coat was turned inside out or something dusty was carried inside it. Kramer stopped at the office door. The plans? Possibly. Then Cole did steal them, or transported them for someone else. Same result. Number one makes him a thief. The other may make him a courier, a victim, or a decoy. Kramer put the cigar in his pocket. I'll send Pearlie for a statement later. I dine at 7:30. I don't care. You will when he is not admitted. Kramer went out. The front door shut hard enough to inform the hinges that homicide had entered the case. I returned to my desk. Wolfe pressed the button for Fritz. You delayed lunch 23 minutes, I said. Mr. Kramer was unusually slow. He came in with Cole as thief and got out with Cole as courier. He left with uncertainty. It is an improvement. Fritz entered and announced that the shad roe could still be served without disgrace, though the potatoes had suffered. Wolfe rose. I said, one question before your stomach takes command. If the north room had no telephone, what did Hale hear ringing? Wolfe moved toward the dining room. Perhaps a telephone. In a room with no line, a portable instrument exists. Then someone was inside, or nearby. And the missing blood, removed, concealed, or invented. You're giving me Kramer's alternatives. Number, I'm refusing his conclusion. He reached the door and stopped. Archie, after lunch, you will visit Hale Industrial. Inspect Cole's office, the records room, and his coat. Speak to Miss Vane and Mr. Dora, then locate Evelyn Cross. And the warehouse. Not yet, because Kramer is searching it. Because someone expects it to be searched. He turned toward the dining room. I said, what about Martin Cole? Wolfe looked back at me. A dead man with $30,000, dust inside his coat, and a label torn from a key had made a journey no one has yet described. Find it. Then he went to rescue the shad roe, leaving me with the rain, the corpse, and Kramer's easy answer, which had lasted less than an hour. Chapter 4 Fey Dust, that told the truth. Hale Industrial Holdings occupied 8 floors of a stone building on Madison Avenue. Though the entrance that afternoon looked less like the gateway to a financial empire than the mouth of a quarry. The city had chosen that week to replace the pavement, repair a water main, and remove part of the neighboring building. Wooden barriers narrowed the sidewalk into a crooked passage. Powdered brick covered the boards. Wet cement filled square trenches near the curb. A canvas chute poured debris into a truck with a noise like furniture falling down stairs. No one could approach the front doors without taking part of the street along. I arrived at 1:40 in a cab that refused to come within 50 feet of the building. By the time I reached the revolving doors, my shoes carried wet gray cement around the soles. My trousers were powdered to the knees, and my coat looked as though a mason had embraced me. A uniformed guard inside the lobby examined my card. Mr. Hale is expecting you. That makes one of us. He telephoned upstairs, then directed me to an elevator guarded by another man in uniform. While I waited, I looked back through the glass doors. There were 3 possible street entrances. The main doors were surrounded by brick dust. A side entrance used by deliveries stood beyond a strip of wet cement. The third, an emergency door opening into an alley, was blocked by a scaffolding crew, sawing stone. Anyone entering from outside would be marked. Not perhaps with the same pattern, but marked. The elevator took me to the 6th floor. Laura Vane met me in the reception area. She was 30 or a little under, with dark hair cut at the jaw and a face that had learned to remain pleasant without becoming friendly. Her grey suit was neat, but a white stain crossed one sleeve near the elbow. "Mr. Goodwin, that depends on whether you're serving warrants." "I'm Laura Vane," I was told. Her eyes went briefly to the dust on my coat. "The street is terrible." "It's honest. It tells everybody where you've been." She did not react, but I had not expected her to. The executive floor was quiet in the expensive way. Thick carpet softened footsteps. Frosted glass divided offices from corridors. Brass nameplates identified men, whose salaries probably required separate filing cabinets. 2 detectives occupied the reception room outside Walter Hale's office. One was searching a desk. The other was questioning a thin clerk who looked ready to confess to the invention of murder. Laura Vane said, "Inspector Kramer authorized your visit, though he was not enthusiastic. Enthusiasm tires him." She led me past Hale's office to the records room. Martin Cole's body had been removed, but the room still carried the disturbance of death. A chalk mark showed where he had fallen near the steel cabinet. A dark patch stained the carpet beneath it. The cabinet door stood open. Drawers had been pulled out and left at various angles. Papers lay on a long table where the police had arranged them for examination. The records room had 2 entrances. The main door opened from the corridor. The second led through a copying room and into a smaller hall serving the accounting department. I examined both. The corridor door had an ordinary lock. The copying room door had none. "So much for privacy," I said. "Only senior staff were supposed to enter," Laura replied. "Rules are excellent locks until someone turns the handles." She watched me cross to the cabinet. "Where were the plans kept?" "Second drawer from the top." "Show me." She came beside me and pointed. The drawer contained several empty folders, a register book, and a small metal box sealed with police tape. "What color was the folder?" "Blue." "You saw Hale put it here yesterday?" "Yes." "At 4:10, she looked at me. "Inspector Kramer told you." "He tells me everything after being forced." I was standing at the door. Mr. Hale brought the folder from his office, opened the cabinet, and placed it inside. "Was Martin Cole present?" "Numbered, did he know?" "I assume so." "That is often where trouble begins. Did you tell him?" "Numbered, did anyone?" "I don't know." I crouched to inspect the drawer. There was dust in the corners, but no blue thread, no torn paper, and no sign that the folder had left any special mark. "Who keeps the cabinet key?" "Mr. Hale, Mr. Cole, and Martin Dora, the security chief." "Yes." "Where is Dora?" "On the 8th floor with the police." "Why was Cole in this room this morning?" "He requested the Brennan shipping contract. I came to bring it to him. You found him dead." "Yes." Her voice stayed controlled, but her fingers tightened around a small notebook she carried. "What time?" 10:40. "Was the corridor door locked?" "Yes." "How did you enter?" "Through the copying room." "Why?" "I tried the main door first. When he did not answer, I thought he might not hear me." "So, you walked through accounting?" "Yes." "Did anyone see you?" "Several clerks." "Did anyone enter with you?" "Number." "What did you touch?" "Nothing." "You didn't check whether he was alive?" "I could see the knife." "A letter opener?" "Yes." "That identifies the object, not his condition." She looked down. There was blood. His eyes were open. I knew. People always know after the fact. Before it, they are less certain. I stood. Where was his overcoat? A framed photograph showed Cole and Hale standing beside a freight terminal, both younger and apparently capable of sharing air. Cole's brown overcoat lay across the conference table inside a clear police covering. A detective named Rowe, whom I knew slightly and liked less, was going through the desk. "You can look," he said. "Don't touch." "I only touch when invited." That would be new. I bent over the coat. The outside was wet along the lower back and both sleeves. A thin layer of white powder marked the cuffs. More important, the inside lining carried several irregular streaks of the same pale dust from the right shoulder to the lower pocket. Near the pocket seam, the cloth had been pulled slightly loose. Something dusty had been carried beneath the coat, or the coat had been worn inside out. I inspected the collar and buttons. The buttons were fastened normally. Turning it inside out would have been awkward and conspicuous. Carrying an object beneath it was more likely. What was in the pockets? I asked Rowe. Wallet, keys, train schedule, handkerchief, black thread, torn label. Anything else? A receipt from a garage. What garage? Harper Motor Storage on 33rd Street. When this morning, 8:50, that was 25 minutes after Cole had entered Hale Industrial, according to Kramer. What was stored? Doesn't say. Have you asked? Detective is going. I looked at Laura Vane. Did Cole leave the office after arriving? Not that I saw. That wasn't the question. I don't know. Did he use a private elevator? There is a service elevator near accounting. Does it reach the basement? Yes. And the garage? The building has no garage. Is there a basement exit? She hesitated. A loading door opens into the alley, the same alley where scaffolding blocked the emergency entrance. Could someone leave through it this morning? The construction crew has been moving materials there, so he would collect dust. She glanced at Cole's coat. Yes, I asked Rowe. Has anyone checked the service elevator? Uniforms did. For blood, for anything. That meant they had looked inside, seen an elevator, and moved on. I left Cole's office and went to accounting. The copying room opened into a long area filled with desks and nervous people. Police questioning had reduced the day's productivity to a whisper. A middle-aged clerk with steel spectacles watched me inspect the service elevator door. His nameplate read Ellis Grant. You're with Mr. Wolfe, he said. I'm the active half. He lowered his voice. Are you investigating Mr. Cole's murder? I'm admiring the architecture. He looked toward the detectives. I saw Mr. Hale leave yesterday. That was worth turning around for. When? Around 10:30? Which exit? This elevator. He pointed to the service car. Where did he go? To the basement. I assumed he left through the loading entrance. How do you know he didn't stop at another floor? The indicator went straight down. What time did he return? About 12:30. Same elevator? Yes. Alone? I believe so. What was he wearing? His dark coat and hat. Condition, Grant frowned. His shoes were dirty, and the coat. He adjusted his spectacles and considered it. It looked clean. Clean enough to remember. Mr. Hale is always neat. Was he carrying anything? A folded canvas cover. That fitted. What did he do with it? He took it into his office. Did anyone else see him leave? Miss Pike may have. Her desk faces the elevator. A young woman, 3 desks away, heard her name and looked up. She was pale and eager to be useful. I saw him, she said. At 10:30, 5 I had just returned from filing invoices. When did he come back? 12:20, Grant objected. It was later. No, Mr. Grant. I went to lunch at 12:30, and he had already returned. I said, call it 2 hours. Did he speak to either of you? Miss Pike shook her head. He seemed angry. Frightened, Grant corrected. Angry, she insisted. Was his coat clean? I asked. Miss Pike blinked. Yes. How do you know? He passed close to my desk. The canvas he carried was filthy, but his coat was not. That was not merely memory. It was contrast. I wrote down their names and addresses. Did the police ask you about this? No, Grant said. They asked about Mr. Cole. Did Hale tell you where he had been? He said he had been upstairs. When? After lunch, Mr. Dorrer asked where he had gone, and Mr. Hale said he had been in a private conference on the 8th floor. Miss Pike shook her head again. There was no conference scheduled. Did Dora challenge him? Number, did anyone? They looked at each other. Employees who see the chairman lie rarely form a committee. I found Hale's security chief, Martin Dorr, in a conference room on the 8th floor. He was around 45, square and compact, with cropped hair and a flattened nose that suggested either boxing or difficult doors. He wore a dark suit that fit poorly across the shoulders. His manner was controlled, but his eyes were busy. "Wolfe sent you," he said. "He rarely throws me this far. I have already spoken to the police. They often leave some words unused. He did not offer me a chair. I took one. What time did Walter Hale leave the building yesterday? He did not. That was quick. He was here all day. From when to when? 9 until 6. Did you see him continuously? Of course not. Then you know because his appointments, telephone calls, and staff movements are recorded. Did he have an appointment from 10:30 to 12:30? Dorr's eyes changed. He was working privately. Where? His office. Who saw him? I did. At what times? Dorr paused. Shortly after 10, again around 1. That leaves room for lunch, murder, and a matinee. What are you implying? I save implications for Wolfe. I'm asking where Hale went through the service elevator. He did not leave. 2 clerks saw him. They are mistaken. They saw him return carrying dirty canvas. Dorr leaned forward. Office gossip is not evidence. Dust is. He sat back. I continued. Every entrance to this building is surrounded by powdered brick, wet cement, or stone debris. I came through the front and collected half the project. Cole's coat had dust outside and inside. Hale returned yesterday with muddy shoes, a spotless coat, and a filthy canvas covering. That means both men used a route connected to construction. Many streets are under construction. But Hale's route ended at the Mercer warehouse across from Wolfe's house. Dorr's face stayed still, but the skin around his eyes tightened. You knew he went there, I said. Number, you asked where he had been. I asked questions. It is my job. And when he lied, I did not know he lied. You're his security chief, but he can disappear for 2 hours unnoticed. He owns the company. I do not follow him. Yesterday morning, someone called Hale and directed him to the warehouse. Was the call received here? Dorr said nothing. Telephone records will answer. The call came through the private line. Who answered? I did. That was better. What did the caller say? He asked for Hale. Man or woman? Man, voice. Low, possibly disguised. Did you remain on the line? Number. How long did the call last? Less than a minute. What did Hale do afterward? He told me he was not to be disturbed. Then left through the service elevator. I did not see him leave. But you knew. Dorr stood. This interview is over. Sit down, Mr. Dorr. He stared at me. I kept my voice pleasant. You can end the interview. Then I go downstairs, tell Kramer that you concealed Hale's movements, and suggest he compare the private line record with the call that lured Hale to a room where he expected to find Paul Mercer's body. Dorr sat. What do you want? The truth is fashionable this week. He looked at the closed conference room door. Hale told me he was going to inspect the Mercer warehouse. Why lie to the clerks? He wanted no one to know. Why? He believed someone inside the company had stolen the plans. The plans Hale claimed were still in his safe yesterday afternoon. Dorr's jaw hardened. That answer had cut in the right place. I said. The plans were already missing before Hale came to Wolfe. Number, yes. Otherwise he could not have gone searching for them at 10:30 and then placed them in the safe at 4:10. Dorr said nothing. Laura Vane says she saw him put a blue folder in the cabinet. She saw a folder, not the plans. Number, did she know that? Number, did Martin Cole? Dorr's gaze went to the window. He either took them or helped search for them. I don't know. That phrase is getting crowded. I stood. One more thing. Why did Hale insist this morning that he had never left the building? Dar looked at me sharply. Who told you that? He did indirectly. He claimed he walked from his office to Wolfe's house. Later he admitted entering the warehouse. Now his employees say he left here 2 hours earlier than he admitted. Dar's mouth tightened. Ask Hale. I intend to. Walter Hale's office was empty. Laura Vane said he had been taken to police headquarters for further questioning. But his desk, private washroom, and closet remained available under Detective Rowe's supervision. The closet contained 3 suits, 2 umbrellas, a raincoat, and a grey canvas cover folded on a shelf. I asked Rowe to witness while I examined it. The outside was coated with white dust. The inside was clean except for a dark brown stain near the lower edge. I smelled it, not blood. Oil caught in one seam was a small red fiber. I had seen material of that color earlier, though it took me a moment to place it. The chalk outline in the records room had ended beside a red carpet runner near the steel cabinet. I put the fiber in an envelope and handed it to Rowe. Have your laboratory. Compare that with the records room carpet. He frowned. Why? Because Hale carried this canvas yesterday morning, before Martin Cole was killed in that room today. That doesn't connect them. Number, but it may connect the warehouse to the office. I telephoned Wolfe from Hale's desk. He answered after Fritz transferred the call. Well, Kramer's real evidence is beginning to behave. Your port. I told him about the building entrances, the dust, Cole's garage receipt, Hale's too, Hoare absence, the service elevator, door's concealment, the false blue folder, and the canvas, cover with the red fiber. Wolfe remained silent for several seconds. Then he asked, did Hale leave the building before or after the threatening note arrived? Dar says the private call came shortly before Hale left. I haven't established when the note was delivered. Do so. You sound interested. I was interested yesterday. You hid it well. Have you located Evelyn Cross? Not yet. Do that next. What about Harper Motor Storage? First the note, then the garage. Someone needed Hale to make a concealed journey, and later needed us to know he had made it. The spotless coat gave him away. Number it told the truth. Hale gave himself away by lying about it. I looked through the office window at the barriers below. A gust of wind lifted brick powder and drove it against the glass in a pale sheet. Why carry a clean coat through a dirty building? I asked. To preserve the appearance of a journey not taken. He claimed he came from here. Precisely. Therefore he needed to appear as though he had crossed the city in rain while avoiding the evidence of the place he actually visited. But his shoes were dirty. Shoes can be dirtied deliberately. A coat is more difficult to clean in haste. So the mud was part of the lie. Yes. And the canvas was part of the truth. Yes. I glanced at the service, elevator indicator, as it dropped toward the basement. Then Hale left this building, crossed to the warehouse, searched the basement, came to you, and lied about every stage. Not every stage. Which part was true? That he was afraid. The line clicked as Wolfe hung up. I stood for a moment with the receiver in my hand. Below me, every entrance to Hale Industrial was wrapped in dust, mud, wet cement, and noise. No man could pass through without carrying proof on his clothes. Walter Hale had tried to erase his journey by protecting his coat. Instead, he had outlined it. Chapter 5. Fay the Hidden Passage. I returned to West 35th Street. Shortly after 6, with brick dust in my cuffs, wet cement on one shoe, and enough questions to keep Wolfe occupied until breakfast. He was not available for occupation. From 4 until 6, he had been upstairs with the orchids, and at 6, he had entered the office only long enough to inspect the evening mail before proceeding to the dining room. Wolfe did not permit murder, theft, hidden rooms, or the collapse of industrial empires to interfere with dinner. That evening, Fritz served duck with chestnuts, a dish which required silence during the first 3 bites. I waited until the 4th. Hale disappeared from his office for 2 hours, I said. 2 clerks saw him use the service elevator. His security chief knew he went to the Mercer warehouse and lied about it. The plans had already vanished before Hale pretended to place them in the safe. Wolfe cut a piece of duck. You reported those facts by telephone. I have improved them through repetition. You have merely cooled the food. Fritz gave me a warning look from the sideboard. I ate for another minute. Then Fritz said, "There is one thing." Wolfe stopped with his fork halfway to his mouth. Fritz did not interrupt meals with trivia. I had once seen him allow a deliveryman to wait 20 minutes in the hall because the man had arrived during a sauce. "What thing?" Wolfe asked. "When Mr. Hale first came yesterday, his coat had an odor. I looked at him. Construction dust. Number, machine oil." Wolfe lowered the fork. "What kind?" "The heavy oil used on old lifts and service machinery. It is not the oil used in automobiles. It has graphite in it." "You smelled it while taking his hat?" "Yes, it was faint, but the coat was warm from his body and the odor rose from the lower back." "Why did you not mention it?" Fritz considered that an unreasonable question. At the time, Mr. Hale was a visitor with a clean coat. Many men smell of machines. "Not Walter Hale," I said. "He owns them." Fritz ignored me. "Later, when you spoke of the warehouse, I remembered." Wolfe resumed cutting the duck. But he was no longer interested in it, which was a tribute to the machine oil. "Archie," he said, "the plans of Hale Industrial's building. I was planning to get them tomorrow. You are planning badly. It is 6:30. Buildings do not close. Offices do. Find someone who has the plans." By 7:10, I had telephoned the Department of Buildings. A deputy commissioner. I had once helped avoid a public embarrassment. An architect who owed Wolfe money, and a retired fire inspector who owed me nothing but enjoyed gossip. The fire inspector, Henry Pike, remembered Hale's building under its former name, the Barlow Freight Exchange. There were service tunnels all through that block, he told me. Old delivery passages, horse carts used them before trucks got too large. Did one connect the Barlow building to the Mercer warehouse? There was a pause. Not officially. That means yes. It means old owners often built first and asked permission later. There was a tunnel from the Barlow basement west to a warehouse on 34th Street. It may have continued north toward Mercer. May have. The records were incomplete. Part of it was sealed after a boiler fire in 1938. Sealed with what? Brick, supposedly. Supposedly is doing heavy work tonight. He gave me the name of a municipal archive clerk who could locate the original plans. The clerk lived in Queens and had already gone home, but the deputy commissioner persuaded him that public service was a 24-hour disease. At 8:15, a messenger delivered 3 copied plans to the brownstone. Wolfe examined them in the office. The oldest showed a basement loading corridor beneath Hale Industrial's building. It ran west under the alley to a small warehouse facing 34th Street. A thinner line continued north along the rear foundations of the block. On a later plan, that line had disappeared beneath a handwritten note. "Passage closed, access filled," Wolfe tapped the words. "Who certified the closure?" I read the faded initials. Martin Cole. He would have been young. Initials are not proof. Could be Mercer Corporation. Could be many things. The relevant point is that a passage once existed. I studied the drawing. The abandoned warehouse on 34th Street sat across the block from Hale Industrial and diagonally behind the Mercer property. Its street entrance was nowhere near the construction barriers I had inspected. A man could leave Hale's building through the service basement, use the passage, enter the abandoned warehouse, and come out on 34th Street, I said. Yes. Then cross through the Mercer warehouse from the rear. Possibly. That would explain the machine oil. And the clean coat. I shook my head. A tunnel would be dirty, not if the coat were protected. Then why the oil on the coat? The canvas cover may have been short, torn, or displaced. Speculation is idle. Inspect it. I looked at the clock. Tonight. The tunnel may be altered, emptied, or sealed by morning. You could come along. Number underground walking would broaden you. It would compress me. I took my coat, a flashlight, my shoulder holster, and a crowbar from the basement workshop. Fritz supplied a smaller electric lamp and a packet containing 2 sandwiches, since he considered it possible that tunnels delayed dinner, but impossible that they justified hunger. The abandoned warehouse stood on the north side of 34th Street behind a rusted iron gate. Its windows were boarded, and its sign had faded until only the word storage remained visible. A chain crossed the front doors, but the padlock was new. That interested me. Abandoned buildings usually wear old locks or none. New locks indicate either hope or secrecy. I tried the brass key marked North Room, which Kramer had returned to us after photographing it. It did not fit. The side alley offered a better chance. Halfway down, behind a stack of broken crates, I found a narrow steel door. Its keyhole was old and large. The brass key entered smoothly. It turned. I paused before opening it. When a key dropped in Wolfe's hall opens an abandoned warehouse, coincidence has left the neighborhood. The door led into darkness. The air smelled of damp brick, rust, old paper, and the heavy machine oil Fritz had described. I switched on the lamp and entered. The warehouse floor was mostly empty. Wooden racks leaned against walls. A dead freight lift occupied one corner. Its cables coated with black grease, fresh footprints crossed the dust from the side door to a stairway descending beneath the lift. The prints were not clear enough for identification, but one set came from a broad shoe with a worn outer heel. Another was narrower. At the foot of the stairs, I found the tunnel. It was 6 feet wide and high enough for me to stand upright. Pipes ran along one wall. An old rail track, probably used for handcarts, disappeared into the dark. The floor held a narrow strip of fresh mud. I followed it east. After 40 yards, the tunnel divided. One branch continued toward Hale Industrial. The other turned north beneath the block. The east branch ended at a steel door. Through it came the faint vibration of machinery, likely the service basement of Hale's building. Fresh oil shone around the hinges. The north branch led to a brick wall. At first glance, it appeared solid. At second glance, the mortar around one section was too clean. I pushed. Nothing happened. Then I noticed a metal lever concealed behind a pipe. When I pulled it, a rectangular part of the wall shifted inward on rollers. Someone had built a brick door. Beyond it was a low storage chamber. A wooden stair rose toward the rear of the Mercer warehouse. The hidden passage had not been filled. It had been disguised. I went through and closed the brick panel behind me. The chamber contained a workbench, 2 empty fuel cans, coils of wire, and a row of hooks on one wall. One hook held a grey canvas cover similar to Hale's, but longer and heavily stained. Beside it hung a dark wool coat. For one sharp second, I thought Walter Hale had left his clothes waiting for me. Then I stepped closer. The coat had no labels, no personal marks, and several sections had been cut from the lining. Its dark charcoal wool matched Hale's coat in color and texture. One sleeve had been partly removed, and loose fibers clung to the workbench. Summoner had used it for repairs, substitution, or imitation. On the bench lay a wooden clothes brush. Its bristles were thick with pale dust. I picked it up with my handkerchief and examined the handle. A dark smear marked one edge. It might have been machine grease, but the smell was wrong. Metallic blood. I placed it in one of the envelopes I had brought. Under the bench, I found a black leather glove. It was stiff and dark across the palm. The stain extended between the first 2 fingers and along the cuff. There was no need to smell it. Blood had soaked through. The glove was for a right hand. Walter Hale had removed his gloves in Wolfe's office. Both had appeared clean, though I had not inspected them. Martin Cole had not been wearing gloves when he died, according to Kramer's report. I searched the chamber carefully. Behind a fuel can was a scrap of blue cardboard, torn from a folder. It carried no writing, but one corner had been pierced by a fastener. Near it lay 3 small brass filings and a broken length of black thread. On the wall above the workbench, someone had drawn a rough map of the tunnel in chalk. The branches were marked HM and NH for Hale, OM for Mercer, ON for the 34th Street warehouse, or perhaps north room. A fourth line had been started toward the south, but crossed out. The most useful item was in a waste bin. It was a sheet from a hotel message pad, crumpled and stained with oil. Most of the writing had been torn away. What remained showed 3 words in pencil: Coal 8:30, bring originals. I put it in another envelope. Then I heard a sound from the tunnel, a scrape. Not a rat. Rats do not try to be quiet after making a mistake. I switched off the lamp. The chamber went black except for a thin line of light beneath the brick door. Someone was approaching from the east branch, carrying a flashlight. I moved behind the workbench and drew the automatic. The hidden panel opened. A man entered wearing a dark raincoat and cap. The flashlight beam moved across the hooks, the canvas cover, and the floor. It stopped on the empty place where the glove had been. He knew it was missing. He turned toward the bench. He said, "Keep your hands where the light can introduce them." The flashlight jerked toward me. I stepped aside before the beam found my face. The man swung something. It struck the edge of the workbench with a metal crack. I fired once into the ceiling. The report filled the chamber and rolled through the tunnel like a train collision. The man dropped the weapon and ran. I went after him. He reached the tunnel, turned east, and shut off his flashlight. I followed by sound, which is a poor method, but better than guessing. His shoes struck the old rails. Mine nearly did. At the junction, he turned toward Hale Industrial. I gained on him. He reached the steel door, opened it, and slipped through. By the time I got there, it had locked from the other side. I hit it with my shoulder. It did not care. The dropped weapon turned out to be an iron pry bar. No initials, no fingerprints I could preserve after he had gripped it with gloves. I returned to the chamber, switched on the lamp, and finished the search. The bullet had buried itself in an overhead beam. Wolfe would complain about the expense of ammunition, and then deny caring whether I had been attacked. I telephoned him from a drugstore on 34th Street 20 minutes later. "You fired a pistol," he said after hearing my report. "One shot." "At whom?" "The ceiling." "Did it confess?" "It's considering counsel." I told him about the tunnel, the false brick wall, the coat brush, the blood-stained glove, the blue folder scrap, the charcoal coat, and the message mentioning coal and the originals. "Did you recognize the man?" Wolfe asked. "Number, medium height, solid build." He moved quickly. "Mr. Dorr, possibly. Mr. Hale, also possible." Was the coat in the chamber identical to Hale's, close enough to fool someone at a distance? Not identical. I need his coat beside it. Do not request it yet. Why? Because if the coat was intended as a substitute, the owner must not know we have found it. A substitute for what? For an appearance. I leaned against the telephone booth. Hale protected his real coat through the tunnel, brushed it before entering your house, and came in spotless. Perhaps. Then what is the spare coat for? That is the question. And the glove. Blood on a glove proves contact with blood. It does not identify the hand. It was a right-hand glove. The letter opener entered coal below the left ribs. A right-handed attacker fits. So do most adults. You could try being pleased. I will consider it when you provide a result. I found the hidden passage. I also got shot at. You shot at the ceiling. Someone tried to hit me with a pry bar. Did he succeed? Number. Then your complaint is premature. I heard the faint clink of glass. He was probably pouring beer. What now? I asked. Take the evidence to Mr. Kramer. All of it. Not the charcoal coat. Why not? Bring that here. It's bulky. You have carried more troublesome objects. Some of them talked. Then do not delay. I returned to the warehouse, wrapped the dark coat in the grey canvas cover, and carried both out through the side door. A taxi driver refused me until I added $5 and told him the bundle contained theatrical costumes rather than a body. At the brownstone, Fritz met me in the hall. He smelled the charcoal coat before I had fully unwrapped it. "That is the odor," he said. "The same machine oil. Is it Hale's coat? Number, you're sure?" He ran his fingers along the lapel without touching the stained areas. Mr. Hale's coat was better cloth. This is similar, but cheaper. The collar is cut differently. Wolfe had come to the office door. He inspected the coat from 6 feet away. A counterfeit, he said, of a coat, of a man's journey. I laid the bundle on the long table. Wolfe told Fritz to bring magnifying lenses and clean paper. We spread the coat beneath the office lights. Along the left shoulder, caught in the wool, were tiny chips of red paint. On the lower back was a narrow oil stain. The inside pocket had been cut open and crudely re-sewn. I removed the stitches. Inside the lining was a flat brass token stamped with the number 47 and the name Harper Motor Storage, the garage from Martin Cole's receipt. Wolfe looked at it. Cole stored something there at 8:50, I said. Or retrieved something. A car, possibly. Then his hidden journey began at the garage, passed through Hale's building, and ended in the records room. Wolfe shook his head. You are arranging events before learning them. The tunnel connects everything. A tunnel connects places. It does not explain motives. The blood-stained glove explains violence. It confirms it. The brush explains the spotless coat. Yes, that was the first clean agreement I had received all evening. Wolfe indicated the brush. Summoner passed through construction dust, entered this chamber, removed or covered a coat, brushed the wool carefully, and continued to my house. Mr. Hale claimed to have walked from his office. In fact, he traveled underground for part of the journey. Then his shoes, deliberately dirtied after the coat was cleaned. Why bother? To make his lie plausible. Why not brush the shoes too? Because he wished them dirty. I sat on the edge of my desk. So Hale wanted us to believe he crossed the street, but not know he came through the tunnel. Correct, yet, he admitted, entering the Mercer warehouse. Only after you proved it. And someone left the north room key in our hall. Yes. Summoner wanted us to find the passage. Not necessarily. The key opened the 34th Street warehouse, but its label directed us elsewhere. It was meant to guide us to the north room, where Mr. Hale had been warned he would find Paul Mercer's body. A trap, perhaps, for Hale or for us. I looked at the dark coat. What appearance was being counterfeited? Wolfe's eyes went to the cut lining, the oil stain, and the red paint. Tomorrow, he said, you will visit Harper Motor Storage. You will learn what Martin Cole placed there and who collected it. Then you will bring Walter Hale's coat to this office. He won't hand it over. Mr. Kramer will. He thinks coats are meaningless. Then he should not object to surrendering one. The telephone rang, he answered. It was Pearlie Stebbins. His voice was flat. Kramer wants both of you at the Mercer warehouse. Why? We found a body behind the north room wall. I looked at Wolfe. Paul Mercer. No identification yet. How long dead? Not long. That stopped me. What does that mean? The medical examiner says less than 24 hours. Paul Mercer had disappeared 3 weeks earlier. I repeated it to Wolfe. His expression did not change, but his fingers tightened on the arm of his chair. Pearlie added, There's something else. The body is wearing a dark charcoal coat. I looked down at the counterfeit spread across our table. Condition? I asked. Spotless, Pearlie said. Chapter 6 Faye the Journey. No one expected Inspector Kramer had converted the Mercer warehouse into a public exhibition of bad temper. Police lamps shone through the broken windows. Uniformed men blocked both street entrances, the alley and the service stairs. The construction foreman stood beside a pile of timber, answering the same questions for the third time. Rain struck the temporary roof in quick, hard taps, while dust, disturbed by boots and search crews, hung in the air despite the damp. Kramer met us in the north corridor. He looked at Wolfe, then at the 4 men required to carry Wolfe's chair over the worst of the debris, and decided not to comment. That showed unusual restraint. You could have stayed home, he said. I intended to, Wolfe replied. Mr. Goodwin conveyed your insistence with excessive vigor. You wanted facts. Here they are. Kramer led us into the north room. Part of the brick wall had been opened. Behind it was a narrow cavity, no more than 4 feet deep. A body lay on a canvas sheet beneath a police lamp. The dead man wore a charcoal overcoat, black trousers, and polished shoes. His face was bruised and swollen. A deep wound marked the back of his skull. The coat was clean, not nearly clean. Not clean except at the cuffs. It was spotless from collar to hem. Pearlie Stebbins stood beside the medical examiner. He gave me a look suggesting that he would rather be home with a cold than in a war with a corpse. Kramer said, "Name is Samuel Rusk. We got fingerprints from a gambling arrest 8 years ago. He worked as a private investigator, collector, guard, and anything else that paid cash." "When did he die?" Wolfe asked. "Between 8 last night and 2 this morning. 'Cause blow to the head. The doctor says a heavy round object. Was he killed in this cavity? Number not enough blood. Then he was transported. That's what bodies do when they're found somewhere they weren't killed." Wolfe ignored the tone. Contents of his pockets. Kramer recited them. Wallet, $14, cigarettes, matches, a pocket knife, and a key to a room at the Morton Hotel. No weapon, no telephone, no documents. Labels in the coat, removed, dust, none outside. Some inside. Wolfe's eyes moved to the lower edge of the coat. Machine oil. Kramer's jaw shifted. "Yes, graphite, based. The laboratory will tell us. Mr. Brenner already has." Kramer's gaze sharpened. "Fritz identified oil on Hale's coat, by odor. You didn't mention that. We learned it at dinner. Of course, evidence waits for your dinner." Wolfe looked at the body again. "This coat is not Walter Hale's. No one said it was. It resembles his. A dark coat resembles another dark coat. The city is full of conspiracies. The cloth is inferior. The collar differs. Mr. Goodwin found another similar coat in the tunnel chamber." Kramer turned to me. "You found what?" I was getting to that. "When?" Before Pearlie called. "Where is it?" "At the house." Kramer's voice hardened. "You removed evidence from a murder scene. At the time it was an abandoned warehouse with no body in sight. You also found a blood-stained glove and brush. Those I brought for you, but not the coat. Wolfe wanted it." Kramer looked ready to test whether Wolfe's chair could roll backward through a wall. Wolfe said, "The coat is available. Your indignation may be postponed." Kramer stared at him for 3 seconds and then motioned toward the corridor. Outside, we returned to the larger basement records room. A folding table had been installed beneath 2 work lamps. Maps, photographs, evidence bags, and coffee cups covered it. Wolfe's chair was placed at one end. He settled into it with the expression of a monarch forced to hold court in a boiler room. Kramer remained standing. "You told me Cole was killed at Hale Industrial," he said. "Now you're sniffing oil in a tunnel and collecting matching coats. What exactly are you trying to sell?" "I sell conclusions only when they are ready." "You have one. I can see it." Wolfe looked at him. "Martin Cole was not killed in the records room where his body was discovered." Kramer's face did not change, but Pearlie stopped writing. "You've seen no medical report," Kramer said. "I do not require one for that conclusion." "Then you require magic." "Number dust." Kramer took out a cigar and rolled it between his fingers. Wolfe continued. "Mr. Cole arrived at Hale Industrial at 8:20 yesterday morning. At 8:50, a transaction was recorded at Harper Motor Storage. His overcoat carried construction dust on the outside, and machine oil and white powder within the lining. A torn label and black thread in his pocket connected him to the brass key planted in my hall. He therefore made a journey after entering the office. We know that. You know he left the executive floor. You have not understood where he went or how he returned." Kramer glanced at the tunnel map. "Through the passage." "Yes, into this warehouse." "Yes. And you think Hale met him here?" "I do." "Why?" "Because both men concealed the same journey by the same method." Wolfe nodded to me. I took the grey canvas covering from the evidence bundle and spread it on the table. "The outside," Wolfe said, is coated with construction dust and marked by old oil. The inside is comparatively clean. Mr. Hale wore such a cover to protect his coat. Mr. Cole carried something dusty beneath his coat, or carried the coat beneath a covering. The brush found in the chamber was used to remove the remaining traces. Kramer said, "That proves they used the tunnel. It doesn't prove they met." The message found there named Cole and instructed him to bring the originals at 8:30. That note could be days old. Mr. Cole's garage receipt bears yesterday's date and the time 8:50. The brass storage token found inside the counterfeit coat connects the garage to the tunnel chamber. The original plans were the objects to be exchanged. Pearlie asked, "Why meet underground when both men worked in the same building?" "Because the meeting concerned something neither wished seen entering or leaving an office." "The plans," Kramer said. "And money, the 30,000 under Cole's desk." "Possibly." Kramer put the unlit cigar between his teeth. "You're saying Cole stole the plans and Hale paid him?" "Number Hale already owned the plans, at least legally. Payment for their return would be extortion, not purchase. Then Cole took them." "Perhaps, or he discovered they had been falsified." That silenced the room for a moment. Kramer removed the cigar. "Falsified how?" "The plans were developed by Mercer Warehouse Corporation before Hale acquired it. Nathan Mercer accused Hale of using false valuations during the acquisition. Evelyn Cross copied private correspondence and was dismissed. Paul Mercer disappeared. The missing plans may contain specifications proving that the freight control system was more valuable than Hale represented during the sale." Kramer frowned. "That's a financial crime, not murder." "It became murder when someone tried to control the proof." "Cole?" "Cole handled Hale Industrial's financial and legal operations. He would know the true value of Mercer's work. He may have helped conceal it. Later, for money or conscience, he changed sides," I said. "Or tried to sell the same secret twice." Wolfe inclined his head. "Mr. Cole's character does not require admiration." Kramer planted both hands on the table. "Get to the body." Wolfe closed his eyes briefly, as if arranging sentences for a slow student. Mr. Hale left his office building through the basement service route. He crossed beneath the streets and buildings through the old delivery tunnel. He entered this warehouse without passing the construction barriers above. His coat remained clean because it never encountered the street. Kramer said nothing. Wolfe opened his eyes. That cleanliness was not proof that Mr. Hale remained indoors. It was proof that he traveled underground. "The rain drummed against the boards above us," Wolfe continued. "Here, in or near the hidden chamber, Hale met Martin Cole. Cole brought the original plans. An argument followed. Cole demanded money, threatened disclosure, or refused to surrender the documents. Hale struck him or stabbed him. The letter opener was used," Kramer said. "Yes, it came from Hale's office, but could have been carried here beforehand. You have no blood matching Cole in the tunnel. You have not completed the tests." Kramer's jaw moved. Wolfe indicated the rails shown on the old plan. The passage was built for handcarts. A dead man could be transported through it with little difficulty. Hale carried Cole's body back to the basement of Hale Industrial, used the service lift, and placed it in the 6th-floor records room. Pearlie looked doubtful. In the middle of a working morning, during construction noise, with elevator access controlled by Martin Dora, and with employees accustomed to covered carts, moving records and supplies. Kramer said. No one reported a cart. No one was asked the correct question. Pearlie made a note. Kramer glared at him and then turned back to Wolfe. Hale was seen returning around 12:20. Cole's body was discovered at 10:40. Your times don't fit. They do if the clerks remembered the wrong journey. Kramer stared. Wolfe said, they saw Hale leave the executive floor the previous day, when he first searched the warehouse after receiving the anonymous call. That established his knowledge of the passage. Cole was killed early the next morning, less than 24 hours after Hale first came to us. Hale did not need to appear at the service elevator himself. Mr. Dora could move the body, I said. Dora controlled security and knew about Hale's first trip. Indeed. Hale committed the murder here. Dora transported Cole back and arranged the records room. Kramer's cigar had stopped moving. Why bring the body back? To give you easy answer. Kramer's eyes narrowed. A dead Cole beside the open cabinet, Wolfe said. $30,000 hidden beneath his desk, and the plans missing. The scene declared that Cole was a thief killed during a dispute over money. It concentrated the inquiry inside Hale Industrial, and away from this warehouse, the tunnel, Nathan Mercer's death, and Paul Mercer's disappearance. The records. Room door was locked, an unnecessary flourish. The copying room entrance remained open because Dora needed to leave. Laura Vane found the body. She was directed to retrieve a contract Cole had supposedly requested. Who conveyed that request? Kramer looked at Pearlie. Pearlie consulted his notebook. Dora told her Cole wanted the Brennan contract. Kramer's face hardened. Wolfe said, Mr. Dora supplied the reason she entered, the time of discovery, and a witness with no apparent involvement. Then why did Hale come to you? Kramer demanded. Why hire you after killing his partner? Because someone else knew. The threat. Yes, Hale received a demand to return what he had taken. He feared that Paul Mercer, Evelyn Cross, or another person possessed proof. By hiring me, he hoped to learn who was threatening him before the police connected Cole's death to the Mercer acquisition. He lied to you from the start. He intended to govern the inquiry by rationing information. That worked well. It rarely does. Kramer pointed toward the north room. And Samuel Rusk, not yet resolved. You just accused Hale of one murder, while another body lies 10 yards away. The second body complicates the first. It does not erase it. Rusk is wearing a copy of Hale's coat. Yes, why? Summonen wished him mistaken for Hale, or wished a witness to report seeing Hale on a journey Hale did not make. I looked at the evidence table. The counterfeit coats were not just for protecting clothes. They were for manufacturing witnesses. Wolfe nodded. A dark figure entering or leaving a tunnel, seen at a distance, could be identified by a familiar coat rather than a face, Kramer said. Then Hale may have been framed. For Rusk's death, perhaps, not necessarily for Cole's. You're separating the murders. I am refusing to combine them merely because the bodies touched the same passage. Pearlie's telephone rang. He answered, listened, and looked toward Kramer. Laboratory report from Hale Industrial, he said. The red fiber from the canvas cover matches the records. Room carpet. Kramer stared at Wolfe. Pearlie continued. They also found blood in the seams of an old handcart in Hale's basement. Preliminary type matches Cole. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Kramer said, Get Hale. Pearlie moved away to make the call. Wolfe lifted a hand. He will deny entering the tunnel yesterday morning. He can deny it downtown. He will say Dora moved the body without his knowledge. Then I'll get Dora too. A sensible beginning. Kramer leaned toward Wolfe. You said Hale killed Cole. Can you prove he was in the warehouse at the time of death? Not yet. Then your conclusion is ahead of your evidence. My conclusion explains the evidence already found. That won't convict him. Number it will frighten him. Kramer straightened. Wolfe looked toward the opened wall where Samuel Rusk lay beneath the police light. Hale believed his clean coat concealed his movements. He will soon learn that it recorded them. When he understands that the tunnel, the cart, the fibers, and the oil have reconstructed his journey, he must choose between accusing Dora and explaining why Cole brought the original plans underground. And if he stays quiet, then we arrange a gathering, I said. At the office. Naturally, Kramer groaned. I knew that was coming. Wolfe ignored him. Mr. Hale, Mr. Dora, Miss Vane, Evelyn Cross if you locate her, and any member of the Mercer family, still available. Paul Mercer is missing, Kramer said. Then find him. You make it sound like ordering cheese. Cheese is often more dependable, Pearlie returned. Hale isn't at headquarters or his office, he said. His driver says he left police headquarters alone, 40 minutes ago. No one knows where he went. Kramer swore, grabbed his hat, and started toward the corridor. Wolfe remained seated. Kramer turned. "Aren't you coming? Number, you just accused a man of murder, and now he's disappeared. I have completed my visit. He may be running, possibly, or going to destroy evidence, more likely." Kramer took 2 steps, then stopped. "Where?" Wolfe looked at the old map on the table. "The passage has 3 known entrances. Hale Industrial, this warehouse, and the 34th Street storage building. Mr. Hale knows. The first 2 are occupied by police." I reached for my coat. "The 3rd entrance," I said. Wolfe nodded. "Archie will accompany you." Kramer headed for the door. I followed, then looked back. Wolfe was studying the spotless coat on Samuel Rusk's body. "Anything else?" I asked. "Yes, do not arrest Hale before he reaches the hidden chamber." Kramer stopped so abruptly, I nearly hit him. "You want him to reach it? If he is destroying evidence, he will show you what matters. If he is meeting someone, he will show you who matters. And if he kills again, prevent it." Kramer's face suggested a detailed opinion of armchair detectives, orchid growers, and men who issued instructions while seated. He went on. I followed him into the rain, thinking about Walter Hale's journey. He had tried to make a clean coat prove that he had never crossed a dirty street. Wolfe had turned the fact inside out. Hale had crossed farther than anyone suspected. He had simply done it beneath their feet. Chapter 7. Faye, the riddle of the dirty shoes. By 8 that evening. Wolfe's office contained enough suspicion to heat the brownstone without radiators. Walter Hale sat in the red leather chair, with Inspector Kramer on one side and Sergeant Pearlie Stebbins on the other. Hale had been stopped at the 34th Street warehouse, carrying a metal box, while Martin Dora followed close behind. Kramer had wanted both men taken downtown, but Wolfe had insisted that questions asked in his office produced better answers. Dora stood near the bookshelves under Pearlie's watch. Laura Vane sat beside my desk. Ellis Grant, the accounting clerk, who had seen Hale use the service elevator, held his hat on his knees as if it might protect him. Fritz remained near the office door, calm and watchful. Wolfe entered at 9, precisely after his evening visit to the orchids. He crossed to his desk, lowered himself into his chair, and inspected the room. "No one will leave," he said, "until the matter of Mr. Hale's journey has been settled." Kramer took out a cigar. "We already know the journey. Hale used the tunnel, met Cole, killed him, and had Dora move the body." Hale leaned forward. "That is a lie." Wolfe looked at him. "Which part?" "All of it. You entered the tunnel. I entered the warehouse. You used the underground passage. Number. Then explain the machine oil on your coat. I own factories. Explain the canvas covering found in your office. It was used during inspections. Explain why 2 employees saw you leave by the service elevator and return 2 hours later. They are mistaken." Ellis Grant cleared his throat. "I am not mistaken, sir." Hale turned on him. "You saw someone at a distance. I saw you pass my desk. You assumed it was me." Grant looked at Wolfe. Wolfe said, "Mr. Grant, describe what you observed." Grant swallowed. "Mr. Hale entered the service elevator shortly after 10:30. He wore his dark coat and hat. When he returned, he carried a dirty canvas cover. His shoes were muddy, but the coat looked clean." "Thank you," Hale said. "That proves I had been outside." "No," Wolfe replied. "It proves you wished others to believe it." Kramer frowned. "We know the coat was protected in the tunnel. What is left to explain?" "The shoes." Wolfe placed his hands on the arms of his chair. "When Mr. Hale first entered this house, his shoes carried wet street mud. His coat was spotless. Mr. Goodwin called that contrast unusual. Mr. Brenner noticed it immediately. Mr. Hale later claimed he had walked from his Madison Avenue office through rain and construction." "I did," Hale said. Wolfe shook his head. "You did not. Every entrance to your office building was surrounded by brick powder, wet cement, and debris. Anyone using the street would collect dirt from shoulder to ankle. Mr. Goodwin did, Mr. Cole did, Other employees did, yet your coat carried no trace of the journey you described. I wore the canvas cover. Then why conceal it? I did not want to look filthy when I met you. That answer might serve if the canvas had been removed at my door. Instead, you discarded it in the warehouse and crossed the street in your clean coat. Hale's mouth tightened. Wolfe continued. The coat remained clean because you had traveled beneath the street, not across it. You passed from your building through the old delivery tunnel, entered the warehouse from below, and emerged near this house. Kramer said, that still leaves the muddy shoes. Yes, they are the most revealing part. Wolfe turned toward Fritz. Mr. Brenner, when Mr. Hale arrived, where was the mud concentrated? Fritz answered, without hesitation. Across the toes and outer edges, very little on the heels. The mud was thick but did not rise above the soles. Kramer looked down at his own shoes. Wolfe said, a man walking through a flooded construction street receives irregular splashes. Mud strikes the sides, heels, ankles, and lower trousers. Mr. Hale's shoes showed a neat, shallow coating, as though they had been pressed into mud rather than carried through it. Hale gave a short laugh. You are accusing me of dirtying my own shoes? I am. That is absurd. Number it was necessary. Wolfe leaned back. You knew a clean man arriving during heavy rain would attract notice. You therefore dirtied your shoes to support the false story that you had crossed the street. Near the warehouse entrance was a shallow patch of mud protected from the rain by scaffolding. You stepped into it deliberately before entering my house. Hale looked at Kramer. This is guesswork. Kramer did not answer. I opened a folder on my desk and removed 2 photographs taken by the police. One showed Hale's shoes in Wolfe's hall. The second showed the patch of mud beside the warehouse entrance. The laboratory compared them, I said. Same brick powder, same cement grit, and the same black machine oil, Pearlie added. The mud outside Hale's office building had no machine oil. Hale's face changed slightly. Wolfe saw it. You prepared your shoes, Wolfe said, but forgot the rest of the body. A man cannot cross a dirty street with mud on his shoes, and nothing on his coat, hat, trousers, or gloves. You created one piece of evidence and neglected the pattern it required. Door shifted near the bookshelves. Wolfe turned to him. You helped Mr. Hale move Martin Cole's body. Number, the blood in the handcart matches Cole. The red fiber on the canvas cover matches the records. Room carpet. You controlled the service lift and told Miss Vane to bring a contract to the room where the body had been placed. Dara's face was pale. Hale told me Cole had been injured. He said it was an accident. Hale rose. Pearlie put a hand on his shoulder and pushed him back into the chair. Be quiet, Kramer said. Dara continued. Now speaking quickly, Cole was already dead when I reached the tunnel chamber. Hale said Cole attacked him. He ordered me to help move the body. He said we could make it appear that Cole had stolen the plans and been killed by whoever was buying them. Hale's voice was low. You fool, Wolfe said. No, Mr. Hale. The fool was the man who believed dirt could be arranged like figures in an account. Kramer stepped toward Dor. Where are the plans? Dor pointed to the metal box on Wolfe's desk. Kramer opened it. Inside lay a blue folder, several financial ledgers, and a packet of letters. Laura Vane stared at them. Those are Evelyn Cross's copies. Wolfe nodded. Miss Cross discovered that Hale and Cole had concealed the true value of Mercer's freight system. Cole kept the originals as protection. He later demanded money from Hale. Their meeting in the warehouse ended when Hale struck him, then used the letter opener to ensure silence. Hale's face had lost its polish. Cole threatened to destroy everything I built. So you destroyed him instead, Kramer said. Wolfe lifted one finger. There remains Samuel Rusk's death and the disappearance of Paul Mercer. Those matters are connected, but they require one final demonstration. Kramer stared at him. You mean this is not finished? Mr. Hale killed Martin Cole, but he did not kill Samuel Rusk. Hale looked up sharply. Wolfe noticed. So, he said, did the person who placed Rusk's body in the north room. The office fell silent. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Fritz entered with Wolfe's beer and placed it on the desk. Wolfe poured slowly. "Tomorrow evening," he said, "we shall gather again. Paul Mercer's disappearance, the threatening letter, the false coats, and the second body will then be resolved." Kramer groaned. "Another gathering." Wolfe raised the glass. "You wanted real evidence, Mr. Kramer. Tonight, a pair of dirty shoes supplied it." Chapter 8, Fay the Coat, gives evidence the final gathering began the next evening at 9, after Wolfe had completed his second daily session with the Orchids and eaten a dinner that included trout, roasted potatoes, and a discussion with Fritz about whether parsley could be trusted near butter. Walter Hale sat in the red leather chair with Inspector Kramer beside him. Sergeant Pearlie Stebbins stood near the door. Martin Dora occupied a chair against the wall. Guarded by a uniformed officer, Laura Vane and Ellis Grant sat near my desk. There was one new guest. Paul Mercer, Nathan Mercer's brother, had been missing for 3 weeks. Now he stood before them, thin, pale, and very much alive. Hale stared at him as though the dead had learned to make appointments. "You," Hale said. Mercer's mouth twisted. "You expected a body in the north room." Kramer stepped between them. "You'll both get a chance to talk." Wolfe entered, arranged himself behind his desk, and rang for beer. When Fritz brought it, Wolfe waited until the glass had been properly filled before looking at Hale. "You hired me to recover stolen plans and identify the author of a threat," Wolfe said. "Your purpose was not protection. You wished to construct innocence." Hale said nothing. Wolfe continued. "Martin Cole discovered that you were secretly offering Mercer's freight, control designs to foreign buyers, before Hale Industrial had secured full legal ownership. He also possessed records proving that you had concealed the system's true value during the acquisition of Mercer Warehouse Corporation." "That is false," Hale said. Kramer placed the blue folder and financial ledgers on Wolfe's desk. "The documents disagree," he said. Wolfe nodded. "Cole had assisted you in altering valuations and suppressing correspondence. Later, he decided that knowledge should provide him with a larger reward. He removed the original plans and demanded $30,000. "The money found beneath his desk," Laura Vane said. "Yes, Mr. Hale paid part of the demand, but refused to leave the plans in Cole's possession. They arranged a private meeting in the abandoned warehouse, using the service tunnel, so that neither man would be observed leaving Hale Industrial." Hale leaned forward. "Cole stole from me." "He stole evidence of your theft," Wolfe replied. "The distinction would have interested a court." Wolfe turned to Kramer. "Mr. Cole left the executive floor, descended by the service elevator, and crossed beneath the block. He carried the plans inside his coat, producing the dust found within its lining. Mr. Hale followed through the same passage, wearing a canvas cover over his dark wool coat." Kramer said. "They met in the tunnel chamber." "Yes, Cole demanded additional money and threatened to expose the sale of the plans. Hale struck him during the argument. The first blow may have been impulsive. The use of the letter opener was not." Hale's face remained rigid, but sweat had appeared near his temples. Wolfe continued. Mr. Hale then summoned Martin Dorr. Together, they placed Cole's body on an old delivery cart and transported it back through the passage. They carried it to the 6th floor records room, arranged the open cabinet, and planted the cash beneath Cole's desk. Dora looked at the floor. Kramer said, "Dora's admitted helping move the body. He has admitted enough to preserve a portion of his future," Wolfe replied. "He also instructed Miss Vane to retrieve a contract from the records room, ensuring that an innocent employee would discover the body." Laura Vane's face tightened. "You used me." Dorr did not look up. Wolfe turned his attention to Hale. "After the murder, you came to this house. You carried the threatening note and described yourself as a victim. You hoped that employing me would accomplish 3 things. It would make you appear innocent, reveal what Paul Mercer knew, and allow you to direct attention toward the supposed theft of company plans, rather than the illegal sale behind it." "I came because I was threatened," Hale said. "That part was true. The best lies usually retain one useful truth." Wolfe indicated Paul Mercer. Mr. Mercer wrote the note. Hale looked at him. Mercer said, "My brother Nathan learned what you and Cole had done. He copied some of the records before his death. Evelyn Cross, Hale's former secretary, found the remaining records." "Where is she?" I asked. "Safe," Mercer replied. "She left New York after Dora began following her." Wolfe said, "Miss Cross sent copies to Paul Mercer. He disappeared voluntarily because he believed Hale had arranged Nathan's fatal fall. He hired Samuel Rusk, a private investigator, to observe the warehouse and learn whether the hidden passage was still in use." Kramer frowned. "Rusk wore a coat made to resemble Hale's." "Yes, Mercer gave it to him. He wished witnesses to report that Walter Hale had returned to the warehouse. It was a crude attempt to frighten Hale into recovering the concealed records." Mercer said, "Rusk was supposed to walk through the north corridor and let Hale see him, nothing more." Wolfe's eyes went to Martin Dora. But Mr. Dora saw Rusk first. He recognized the imitation coat and understood that someone knew about the tunnel. He followed Rusk into the hidden chamber and killed him with the iron handle of the delivery cart. Dota lifted his head. "Hale told me to stop whoever was watching." Hale turned toward him. "I did not tell you to kill anyone." "No," Wolfe said. "That murder was Dora's decision." He concealed Rusk's body behind the north room wall and removed the telephone Rusk had carried. Mr. Hale later heard the telephone ringing before Dora recovered it. Kramer looked at Dora. "The laboratory found Rusk's blood on your work gloves." Dora closed his eyes. "That resolves Samuel Rusk," Wolfe said. "It also explains the false coat, but the genuine coat remains the central witness." Hale laughed once without humor. "A coat cannot testify." "Yours did." Wolfe leaned back, his fingers resting on the arms of his chair. "You entered my house after claiming to have walked from your Madison Avenue office. Your shoes were dirty, yet your coat was spotless. You believed the clean coat supported your position, a respectable businessman, dry and composed, arriving to request help." He shook his head. "In fact, its cleanliness proved that your stated journey had never occurred." Hale stared at him. "You traveled underground," Wolfe said. "The canvas covering protected your coat from tunnel dust and machine oil before crossing from the warehouse to this house. You deliberately pressed your shoes into muddy ground. You wished them to support the story of a man who had walked through the rain." Fritz spoke from near the door, but the mud was only on the toes and outer soles. There was none on the heels or trousers. Wolfe nodded. "Mr. Brenner observed what you overlooked. A man crossing a torn street cannot select which parts of his clothing become dirty. Mud splashes upward. Dust settles on shoulders, sleeves, and hat. You manufactured the dirty shoes but forgot to manufacture the journey around them." Pearlie placed a clear evidence envelope on the desk. Inside was a dark wool fiber. "The fiber from the tunnel cart matches Hale's coat," he said. "So does the wool found beneath Cole's fingernails." Kramer stood. Walter Hale looked at the envelope. The resistance went out of his face, leaving only exhaustion and hatred. "Cole would have ruined everything," he said quietly. "He helped build the company. Then he tried to tear it apart." "You built it with stolen designs and altered figures," Mercer said. Hale rose, but Pearlie was already behind him. Kramer took Hale's arm. "Walter Hale, you are under arrest for the murder of Martin Cole." A second officer moved toward Dora. "And you," Kramer added, "for the murder of Samuel Rusk and for helping conceal Cole's body." Dora offered no resistance. Hale did. He pulled free for half a second. Then Pearlie secured his wrists. At the door, Hale turned toward Wolfe. "I had several," Wolfe replied. "The tunnel, the oil, the cart, the wool, the mud, and the coat. Objects are often better witnesses than men. They do not become frightened and revise their memories." Kramer led Hale and Dora out. Paul Mercer followed Pearlie to provide a formal statement. Laura Vane and Ellis Grant left together, both looking as if ordinary office work had become an attractive career. When the front door closed, I returned to my desk. "You left one thing out," I said. Wolfe raised a brow. "Hale's check. Do we keep it?" "Naturally. He hired you to recover the plans, and they were recovered." "Precisely. He also wanted the person threatening him identified. That was accomplished. So, from a business standpoint, he received excellent service. Wolfe reached for his beer. Fritz began collecting the empty glasses. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, and the construction lamps cast pale squares across the wet street. I looked at Hale's empty chair. "A spotless coat," I said. "That was all it took." "No," Wolfe replied. "It took murder, greed, fear, a tunnel, 2 false journeys, and a pair of deliberately soiled shoes. Then the coat was only the beginning. The smallest riddle often is, a guilty man prepares answers for the great questions. He is caught by the question he believes no one will ask." Wolfe drank, closed his eyes, and added, "Why was the coat clean?"